Harvest isn't easy. Long hours, heavy loads, hard miles. But the work doesn't stop when the crop comes out. At Landus, we know next year's harvest is already in the making. It starts with choosing the right seed. It builds with acreage inputs that push your crop further. And it stays sharp with Sky Scout technology that finds issues before they cost you bushels. This isn't chance, it's planning, and it's what we do together. Talk to your Landus advisor or stop at your local Landus location today, and let's get next season started.
I'm William Googe, a viewer collaborator and professional ultra runner from the UK. I love to tackle endurance runs around the world, including a 55-day, 3,064-mile run across the US. So I know a thing or two about performance wear. When it comes to relaxing, I look for something ultra versatile and comfy. The Ponto Performance Jogger from Vuori is perfect for all of those things. It's the comfiest jogger I've ever worn. And the Dreamknit fabric is why I'll always reach for them over other joggers. Check them out in the Dreamknit collection by going to vuori.com/William. That's VUORI.com/William, where new customers can receive 20% off their first order. Plus, enjoy free shipping in the US on orders over $75 and free returns. Exclusions apply. Visit the website for full terms and conditions.
Welcome to Farm Your Daily, a Field Forward podcast. I'm your host, David Geiger. Today on Farm Your Daily, we take a look at the latest technologies and innovations with Carli Milby of Landus. We'll also celebrate women working in agriculture. Please be sure to like and follow the podcast as well as our social media at Field Forward Pod. We would love to have you join our community, keeping folks informed about what is affecting our farmers. This is Farm Here Daily. And joining me on Farm Here Daily, we're going to take a look at what's going on in the world of precision agriculture. Starting off here, we have Carli Milby, the Director of Precision Agriculture here at Landus. We're at the Landus headquarters, Carli. Thank you so much for joining us. And I wanted to go over some of the precision stuff you all are doing here. What is that technology looking like now? I know we've spoken about Sky Scout before on Farm Here Daily, but what are you looking at here, and what's that next level technology appearing like?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today, David. So, here at Landus, we obviously have a precision agriculture department, but right now the really big thing we're focusing on is our Sky Scout program. So for those of you who aren't familiar with that, that is our aerial scouting program where we fly over fields and then we can go in and really detect disease much earlier than the naked eye. So this summer, we found disease showing up on some of these aerial images approximately 14 days before it would show up in the field. So we were then able to go out and scout and make strong recommendations for a first or perhaps a second fungicide pass for some of these growers, or to try different acreage products to try and get ahead of some of that disease, especially the southern rust. So I would say we're really focusing on right now, we've gotten those reports. Obviously now it's harvest. So now what we're really focused on in the precision ag department is yield data, how we build that back into Sky Scout to help make even better recommendations next year for your growers.
I know I was speaking with folks at Landus earlier this year in the midst of the growing season, and there were warnings coming out from that program saying, hey, some fungicide applications could save up to 50 bushels an acre. Well, I was speaking with the folks at ISU the other day, and they were saying there were some areas that a fungicide application could have saved 100 bushels an acre. So there was a pretty good amount of forewarning in that time frame because of this type of new technology. Have you had any feedback from your growers this year?
Yes. In fact, we've had several examples of growers that said they added one or a second pass of fungicide just based on the Sky Scout results. What I would say we're actually hearing more of is growers that now say, I wish I would have done that because my yields are not coming back so well, and so that they are already planning to utilize our Sky Scout program for the next growing season so that we can help them monitor that better.
I wanted to move over into the work here at Landus. We are at the Landus headquarters. And to start off, you are the Director of Precision Agriculture here. Tell me about how you got involved in agriculture and some of your work that you do.
Absolutely, David. So I would say I have a more non-traditional path of coming into agriculture. So I was born amongst the 80s farm crisis. My dad, we were in the middle of losing the family trucking business. So my dad had to go get a job in town when I was just a few months old. So he always farmed part-time. My grandfather farmed full-time. So I grew up around it, but I always had a negative connotation. So when I left home to go to college, I wanted nothing to do with agriculture. So I spent time at Iowa State going for political science, and then I fell into the insurance industry at the time. And once I started having my children, that's really when it came back to where my roots were, right? And I became really passionate about agriculture. So in the insurance industry, I worked in the agribusiness division. I helped run a women in ag program. Really everything outside of work I started getting involved with were community agriculture-based things. Obviously, I have a strong passion for it. So when an opportunity came up a couple of years ago at LandWorks, which is the innovation and tech side that we had at Landus a few years ago, I jumped on that opportunity. I feel really passionate about helping farmers innovate and to really, how do we keep agriculture going at the rate that it's going today, right? So I came over into that innovation and tech space. I did that for a while until Landus absorbed LandWorks, and we still have the innovation space that we utilize and bring new technology to farmers, but we just do it under the Landus umbrella now. So I did that for a while. My background is in sales, so naturally I kind of fell into sales after that stint, and then I was a director of sales up until just a few weeks ago, actually, and then I stepped over into this director of precision agriculture role. I'm really passionate about finding, as I mentioned, the innovation and tech, and I feel like that's where I can do the most good for the most people here at Landus.
Innovation is kind of a pioneering aspect of business. Do you think of other ways that you've kind of worked in agriculture or ways where you felt like you've had to pioneer that kind of helped make you more suitable for this?
Yeah, absolutely. David, I'll be very transparent and say it's being a female coming up in agriculture has probably given me my greatest foundation and tools for this role. So as I mentioned in my past life, I helped run a Women in Agriculture association, and that's where it really became clear to me that there are so many women in this industry who are working right alongside men, and we love that. We're not trying to say that's not part of it, but I just think as women, naturally we're kind of caretakers, and so we sort of take a back seat to different things, right? And then I think sometimes we don't always see how powerful our voices are. And so that's when it really started to all come together for me, was then I saw, oh, I can have a voice here, and I do have a lot of good ideas and opinions, right? And then I think for me, though, the biggest key factor was I'm raising two daughters who are incredibly passionate about agriculture, and how do I pave the way for them, right? And so just making sure that I know how my voice can be heard, helping empower other women, helping empower youth. I mentioned that I've done the Women in Ag group. I also am my own operator. I helped my daughters get they were awarded 3 bred heifers through a local program at a bank in our community. And so they've started their own cattle operation now. And I think a lot of it is just doing it, sometimes failing, figuring it out, and continuing to move on. And that's really what's probably given me the grit and determination to do what I do in the innovation space.
I personally think it's really great that we've seen so many women become more and more involved in agriculture, especially in leadership roles. A few years ago, I did interviews with the director of the Farm Service Agency at the time, Amanda DeYoung, Deputy Secretary of Agriculture, Julie Kinney, and just really great folks. I interviewed April Hemis, just a few days ago, and really great women who are serving as leaders in the community of agriculture. And when you see folks like those becoming more involved, becoming leaders, and you yourself become a director here at Landus, I'm just interested to hear why it would be good for there just to be better recognition when it comes to the folks who are providing support, who are providing leadership and innovation to agriculture in a way that may not have always received that recognition.
Yeah, absolutely. So, David, something we know is that women are involved in, I think it's something like 80% of operations, even if they're not listed as the primary operator. So they are already incredibly inundated in agriculture, but I think it's going back to they don't always feel like they need to have a voice because naturally we are a little bit of caretakers, right? And so I think it's just really elevating that voice and showing what women are involved with and what they are doing, right? Also, something we know, a diverse line of thought is incredibly important in business. And so anytime anytime you can mix women and men together and different lines of thought and different backgrounds and diversity and things like that, it really helps us all become better, right? Because we get exposed to more ideas and things like that. So I think it's incredibly important, and Landus is so supportive of building out that culture, right? That's one of the things I love about working here is people from all different walks of life work here and work at our locations, and I feel like I learn something new every single day because I am working with someone who didn't come up in the same exact career path that I did.
I think another aspect of this too is the traditional gender roles that may have been more typical 100 years ago are not as necessarily needed now with the advent of technology and innovation. And I mean, even if it was 100 years ago, with the current level of cattle breeds and the scale of harvest that we do now, having different traits wouldn't matter as well, because no one's going to be able to move a cow no matter how much you're trying to push it. So tell me about how that level of innovation has been an expectation and an introspective part of how you serve in innovation.
Right. So it's funny that you mentioned that about the cow because, the cows still don't change, right? Even if the breed has changed. And I would say that could almost be related to a farmer, right? So farmers oftentimes come up through multi-generations of farming, right? And so you have sort of this divide of farmers who follow a lot of instinct and what they know from what they were raised on and around and things like that. And then you also have farmers that are interested in exploring newer technology and innovation. And so I think first I'd like to say that we really focus on both here at Landus because I think it's incredibly important to recognize tradition as well as innovation, right? However, we do know that if we don't continue to innovate, we will not be here as an industry and able to feed the world much longer, right? We have labor shortages, we have land shortages, we have turnover in the industry. I can go on and on, these things. And so really the innovation is what's going to help us, right? So for example, Sky Scout, the way I talk to growers about that is I say that is cheaper than one hired hand, and it can go out and do all of your scouting work for you and help you identify disease without ever having to step in a field, right? What a cool thing that you can do that now. So then you, who maybe has less labor, can focus on something more important in your operation, right? So I think it's really about walking alongside the farmers and walking alongside the technology and recognizing no one's going to take that institutional knowledge or replace that institutional knowledge. What's so important is that we utilize the institutional knowledge along with the technology so we all can come up with better practices and become more fruitful and reduce labor and be as efficient as possible.
This is Farm Your Daily. We will continue the conversation in just a moment, but first let's take a look at the marketplace.
Comcast is committed to bringing access to the internet to all Americans, including rural communities across the country, like Sussex County, Delaware.
We were being left behind. Everybody around us seemed to have internet, but we did not. High-speed internet is one of those good things that we needed to help us move our farming, our small businesses, our recreation forward.
Learn more about how we're bringing our next-generation network to more people across the country at comcastcorporation.com/investment in America.
And there was some green on the board at the close on Wednesday. December corn, a penny higher, 4.16 March rising 3/4 cent at 4.32 3/4. Soybeans in November, 11 1/4 higher at 10.13, with January an increase of 10 3/4, 10.31. Soybean meal in October, $1 a ton in the red, $264.70. Soybean oil in October is 0.9 pennies up at 49.75 a pound. Wheat in December, a penny and a quarter more, 5.09 1/4, with March rising 0.5 cent at 5.27 1/2. Hard red winter wheat in December, 2 1/4 down though, 4.95 1/2, with March falling 2 cents at 5.16 3/4. In the livestock market close for Wednesday, there was red there as well. October live cattle, 75 cents a hundredweight down, 231.10. December falling 27 cents at 234.50. Feeder cattle in October, $2.05 a hundredweight weaker at 358.97, with November falling $1.75 at 357.60. Lean hogs in October, $1.42 down at 98.42, with December falling $1.82 at 86.90. That is the Wednesday market close. This is Farm Here Daily.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Healthcare professionals can lead their careers with LinkedIn. Discover jobs by specialty, preferred shifts, and even desired salary. From mental health therapists to radiology technicians, it's now faster and easier for healthcare professionals to find the right fit. Learn more at linkedin.com/healthcare. Side effects may include faster job placement, improved work-life balance, and increased career satisfaction.
I think that's a great point to go back to the innovation side of what you guys are doing. When you have drone technology that allows you to scout way better in a way that even if you had 100 people working, they wouldn't necessarily be able to do it in the same way. And having that ability to then take what you've learned and what you've experienced and then add more to what farmers are doing. And I think another point you made there too that I'd just like to recognize is that when you recognize folks like women in agriculture, that doesn't mean you're diminishing or putting down the men in agriculture, because they're all important. I just definitely love talking about this topic because it is important to recognize folks who may not have had the acknowledgement throughout their services or careers that they otherwise may have gotten. So I just wanted to thank you for pointing that out. And I wanted to just then return to the innovation side. What is that next step then? What's the frontier as you guys work here to help support the farmer in terms of technology and innovation?
So I would say that, as mentioned, we're just really starting to touch on the aerial application as well as aerial scouting. So I think there's a lot of companies out there right now who might own a drone or something like that, but really expanding in that technology where it can do the work for you, right? And it can do the scouting for you. So I think that's going to be really key. Also integrating AI into our practices. So again, we're never going to be able to replace a human and their knowledge, and that's not what we want. But if I could type in something to ChatGPT or another AI tool and get back a recommendation, then I can check it against what my agronomist is saying, and that might be more efficient or help me find a better treatment plan for my crops, right? So I think that those are going to be key things you continue to see in agriculture. I also think satellite imagery is going to become much more of a focus over these next few years. And then anything really with precision, right? So how can we reduce the amount of chemicals that go on the ground or go on the crop? So I think you're going to see a lot more of that technology where you're just spot spraying for different things, or you are treating in just one area instead of your entire field.
Carli, let's just take a 10,000-foot look at your experience and what the folks here at Landus are doing. And what is a time in your life that you have taken agriculture, the community of agriculture, and then use that innovation to change how you did things or change your mind on how things should be or ought to be?
So, David, I would say for me, it's actually probably going back a couple of years when I first came on to LandWorks. So something that was really inspiring to me was how many growers are interested in finding a better way. And so I think some of those moments where you get to bring in a technology, sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. And so at that time we were bringing in a technology that was going to integrate some drone footage with a variety of different things. And that particular path didn't work out, but we learned so much from that path that when we launched Sky Scout, it basically was an instant success for us, right? Because we were able to then take what we had learned from the other technology that didn't go our way and really focus on what the future looks like and what our growers need. I think, from a 10,000 foot view, the thing that I sometimes think about that sounds very silly and trivial is when it became really popular to have cameras on your own farm, right? So just simple technology like Ring technology that I can monitor our cattle from my house, which is 12 miles away. I can monitor anything that's going on there. I can monitor if I have a problem in the barn. And something that simple has really become a game changer for me personally, but then also think about where that has led in agriculture. That's led to drones. That's led to satellite technology. That's led to having eyes and ears on several different areas of our operations. So that's been a really powerful technology that has changed something for me personally that, years ago, if you had just seen a Ring camera, you might not have thought it was going to go where it's gone.
I think to reflect on the conversation we've had today about technology and innovation and pioneering the field of agriculture, especially as a woman in agriculture, what would you like to see here over the next few years or over the next couple decades as a new part of the community, or as something where the community of agriculture really starts to move in a direction where all parts are better seen, better heard, and change for the better?
Yes, I really am a big believer in education, right? So we are facing unprecedented times in agriculture, and those outside of the industry, I think often they want to help and they want to do good, but they don't have enough information. For example, I serve on my local county's extension council, and one thing we're really focused on in the next couple of years is some of that adult programming, and really how can we focus on bringing more agriculture education into the community, among other things, of course. I also think it really starts with our youth. So I am raising teenage children. I have two 15-year-old daughters, and I think that they don't even realize how powerful their voices can be, and they can become advocates as well, right? And so I think focusing on those programs, making sure that programming doesn't die in the rural schools, right? So FFA, 4-H, making sure those programs stay viable and stay well funded to help grow that at a young base and a young age, right? But then I also think it's important to become active as a grower or as a livestock producer and get out in your community and help people understand why certain political measures matter, or why a bill should be passed or shouldn't be passed, right? Or what it looks like for the economy if the agriculture community isn't doing well. So I think we all have a responsibility to help educate other consumers. I think one thing that's great is podcasts have become obviously very popular, and that helps with that. YouTubers, there's several folks on Facebook that are sort of agriculture personalities that I personally follow, and I think those have been really helpful as well. So to me, it's really about starting from that youth age, making sure it's funded and relevant, and then continuing to educate adults as well who may not be inside the agriculture industry.
Thank you for that. Carli Milby is the Director of Precision Agriculture here at Landus. We are at the Landus headquarters chatting in person. Thank you so much for joining me on Farm Here Daily today, Carli.
Thank you so much, David.
This is Farm Here Daily, a Field Forward podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Again, in order to continue to produce this type of local content, we would love to have you join our community. So please follow the podcast as well as our social media channels at Field Forward Pod. You can also find me on social media at Geiger Reports. Again, I am your host, David Geiger, and I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody.